Hi everyone, my name's Demara and I'm going to be giving you today all the information for the second part of the Fast Track to Cosmic Consciousness videos that I'm going to do more of. The first one is up now, went up a couple of days ago, and it's much better if you listen to that one first because I actually did the awareness exercise, which is the basic structure of learning how to really be in the now moment. And if you've been doing that for four times a day, was the suggestion that I received when I learnt this first at a mystery school. And I actually obeyed the rules, you know. If it was said to be an interesting feeling that I was going to get from this, or that it was going to be exciting and change my life, I would always have a go. And this is exactly what happened. So that video is already up, and there's going to be some people listening to this now that have begun to do that, and maybe 2 or 3 days into that. So we're going to carry on from there. But first of all, I've just lit these 2 candles because it's Thanksgiving today, and in the UK where I originate from, it's not celebrated, but I do think it's a lovely thing to have that day, although I really feel that the best thing would be to be grateful every day and to do your intentions in the morning of what you are grateful for. I certainly do that and have done that for decades, but I've lit these in honor of this day as well. So the awareness exercise, coming into the now moment. And when you've done this exercise, what you realize is that there's a different sense of being straight after. When you open your eyes and you're just present again, you're present in a different way, okay? And this is the important thing. And what is that presence? What are you recognizing that's different to when you didn't do the exercise? And it's an interesting thing that you're gonna mull over as you carry on doing this exercise 4 times a day, and it only takes a minute and a half to do it, so it's a really easy discipline to have. But this bit about what is it, you know, what is that feeling of being present? What is that feeling that other people pick up? Because this definitely happens, where people pick up that there's something different about you and they don't know what. They may just be intrigued to be around you when you really get this and you're really crystallizing that within your life, that you can be more present in the moment. But what I'm going to do now is go over some other useful things and times that you can really get into practicing being in this different state of being. And not just for practicing's sake and for them to say, oh, I've been learning how to be more present, but you actually feel amazing when you're in that different state. And it's like, you know, what is it? It's like an inch away from being in despair, isn't it? Because there's no kind of measurement or time frame over those different state beings. And it's like people say, you know, things can change in the fluttering of a butterfly's wings. And it's similar. I think it's similar to that in when you're in one state, one moment, and then you suddenly realize that you're not present and you bring yourself to, as we would say, like, oh, I brought myself to. And what is that? That's it, more in the present, okay? So some really simple ways that you can focus this in your everyday life is when you're cooking or preparing food. And for people who, you know, maybe there's still a lot of guys out there, I don't know, maybe there's a lot of young women out there too, who never prepare their own meals and do takeaways or instant food. But even if you have a slice of toast that you're going to put butter on, what you would do with that is you would be pitching your consciousness and your sense of awareness between the knife and the slice of toast. And so the knife, as you go to get the butter, you're centering your attention between the blade of the knife going into the butter dish. Just sense a feeling and visualize that, because you get the feeling when you do it. So all your attention is on that visualization, is going into that blade of the knife, on that edge, that fine, thin edge as it touches the butter. Okay? And now you're going to the slice of toast. And as you've got this buttery knife with the butter on, you're placing your attention in between the butter that's on the knife and the toast. And so as you spread it, your attention is there at the toast. It's not inside you. It's outside of you now. You're pitching your consciousness where you really want it. You do have a sense of consciousness within you that you may never connect with. I'm sure some people are like this, where they never do it throughout their lives. And maybe it happens in one of those incredible situations that are so exciting or so amazing that they come into that presence. Like at the moment of birth, if you're present at birth of one of your children, you may get a sense of a higher level of consciousness and more focused presence then within yourself. But what we're talking about is not just having it happen like that. We're talking about pitching it where you want it, and to start to experience the feeling that comes with that. Because you can be standing there buttering toast, say 6 slices for the family, and if you do it in the now moment with a sense of awareness and presence, where you're pitching your consciousness on what you're doing, you're actually going to feel pretty blissed out by the time you get to that 6th slice of bread. That's the incredible thing. Okay, so maybe you need to, I don't know whether people have tried any of this before, but what I do know is a huge difference from normal activity. Okay, so maybe some of you want to rush off and do it. But even if you're making notes, okay, if you're taking notes, then get your pen in your hand and pitch your awareness. Say if you're going to write down, times to use awareness exercise is when preparing and cooking food. Then start now to hold your pen, and you're going to pitch your awareness at the tip of the point of that pen, pencil, or whatever it is, and in between that and the paper. And you'll still be able to listen to me and do that, but you're pitching your consciousness. You could also, for the rest of this video, really practice this technique and get a lot out of it by listening to the sound of my voice and not try and listen to what I'm saying. Because your understanding within you and how your technology is lined up will understand everything I'm saying, because you know all the words and you have the mind that puts them together and understands it. So you don't need to listen to what I'm saying per se. Listen to the sound of my voice, and it's a totally different experience for you. You are in a different place. If we were actually together in a room right now, if you were doing that to me, then what would happen to me was that it would even enhance even more my sense of presence, because I understand all this and have been doing this for decades. So when I'm speaking like now, I'm already listening to the sound of my voice. But it would still enhance it if somebody else was listening to the sound of my voice beside me. Okay? So if there was somebody that you're doing this with, you're having a conversation with somebody and you start to listen to the sound of their voice, using this new discipline that you have that makes you feel good and makes you feel more present, then that person is like 90% of the time will be affected by what's happening, and they won't know what's affecting them. They will feel like they're coming more into the present. They will have an experience as well. And I did talk yesterday or the day before when I did the part one of this series of videos. I did talk about how I tried it out with somebody I knew who was very into listening to the sound of his own voice and didn't like being interrupted, and was quite unconscious a lot of the time as to how he was repeating everything and all sorts of things like that. And these were the ideal sort of people that I was told to try it on, because then it made the whole, maybe afternoon you were spending time talking to them, it made it less boring because you were able to bring them more into the now moment. But there was one person that I used to see socially, and I couldn't do it. I did it on so many occasions, and he was so unconscious. I mean, he was a bit of a drinker. I'm trying to think if there was other stuff he did. I really don't know, but I don't think so. He wasn't on drugs or anything like that, but he was definitely a drinker. And so whether that had over the years, he was fairly elderly when I met him, but whether over the years he'd just gone into this total sense of the only thing that was really important was him, I don't know. But I was always unable to do it with him. I couldn't get him to show like, oh, a more enlightened presence. And it's not that the person's going to tell you that, but you're going to realize that by the fact that if they've been whining on and moaning about something, and he was a great moaner, that's another reason that I did it with him. But if somebody's a moaner around you, and that's real unconscious stuff, it's not going to get anybody anywhere, or if they're a gossiper, that's another time to use it. You'll notice that the conversation suddenly changes and they realize what they're doing, because your sense of awareness that you're pitching, which is on a higher frequency, is now going to wake other people up. But first and foremost, this is about waking yourself up. So we know we can do it cooking. And I would just mention the buttering toast, because I would imagine most people do at least that in the kitchen. But if you're chopping vegetables, it's amazing, because you're pitching it on that sharp blade, the thin, sharp blade of the knife, as it comes down on the vegetable. So your awareness is pitched between the two. And it's such a pleasure chopping and really getting into this presence and where your attention is when you're doing it. It's a wonderful thing. So that you can do it on a lot of things, can't you, there with the cooking? There's the stirring. How much stirring do we need to do when we're cooking a stir fry or we're making a sauce or something like that? So you're pitching your awareness at the point of contact of the spoon with the sauce. Okay. Now, another really great one is driving. And this one I loved. I mean, as soon as I was given this, I started trying it out. But see how far you get and you're out of the state again. That's the amazing thing. I mean, you can, when you get into your car, when you sit down, you're going to drive to work or whatever, or down to the golf club or out shopping. So what you can do is run through the 1 minute exercise. You can run through all the things that I talk about on that first video. But you can also just quicken this up by just sitting down on the seat of the chair and feeling the seat that you're sitting on. So you're placing your consciousness there to feel your structure on that seat, okay? And then what you're going to do is you're going to place your awareness between the steering wheel and your hands. And you're holding your awareness there. And then you're going to start just going through the motions, starting the car, looking in your mirrors, whatever you do. But from the time you have your hands on the steering wheel, you're going to start to pitch your hands, your consciousness in between those two things, okay? And then you just drive. So what you're doing there, imagine this, your awareness is now pitched between your hands and your steering wheel. Your awareness is not on the voice in your head, is it? Because in the beginning, we all have a very chatty voice in the head that we think is us. I mean, I genuinely, before I went to this mystery school, which you'll hear the story of if you go on to the first video, I really thought I was that person in my head, and that wasn't really helping me a lot in my life. You know, that's how I felt. I didn't feel a sense of peace, and that's why I decided to go along with all this and try it. So when you're driving, the interesting thing is that your consciousness is pitched there, and your alertness, oh my goodness, the level of your alertness and being able to spot something that's about to happen, and you see it the second it's about to happen, rather than that 1 minute dangerously after it has happened. This is the great thing. And I really enjoyed driving in that state from the day that I first tried it. But most of us don't get out of the drive without it going. And we're suddenly back in, oh, wonder what's happening over there. Oh, this road is busy. You know, that's what happens in the beginning. And then what you do is you suddenly remember, oh my goodness, where's my consciousness? And then you take it back to the place in between your hands and the steering wheel. So you need to practice that a lot. You know, you've got to be able to bring your attention back. Okay? Now, I wouldn't do the extension of that for a while. I'm going to tell you what the extension is because it's really exciting. And again, oh goodness, I love doing this one later on as well. And it then just became a part of how I drove. But the extension of it is, after much practice, where you are able to keep your consciousness in that place, okay, is to take your consciousness after you've settled yourself on your seat, become awake and aware to the fact that you're about to drive your car and you're going to do it in the best way possible. And then you pitch your awareness in between the wheels and the road. And you hold it there as you start to go through the mechanical part, which your body knows very well, of starting your car and getting going. And that is an experience to be had. But do not try that until you have at least a month of driving where you are driving with your attention in that other place, because you will be astonished at how asleep we are and that you can predict what's happening on the road. You won't be that 1 minute after you've seen it with your eyes. You'll be ahead of whatever's happening. And that's incredible, isn't it? But it's also where we need to be in this life. We need to be in that instant moment where the feeling is occurring, the thought is going through somebody's head that they're about to step off the road, they're in a bit of a daze and they haven't looked both ways. That's where we need to be. We need to be in that instant that happens, and it's happening in thought, it's happening in slight movement from walking straight and turning to the curb. Okay, so we're talking about something fantastic here. That's how I see all of this. I mean, without having been taught this, and I think I worked it out at something like 35 years ago. You know, I would not have gone on to do things in certain ways and to teach certain things to other people. And I've certainly taught this awareness exercise and how to live through this to a lot of people, because I ran workshops over 30 years ago that were called Choose to Be Here Now. And, you know, I ran these for 2 days where I would wake people up when I felt they weren't with me in the room. They were in their heads. So I would have a little Tibetan bell that I rang. Now, at the beginning of the 2 days, I would tell them what I was going to do and could I have permission to wake them up. And that's how it was done. Like, I could feel the presence, whether it was fully there or not. And I really didn't want to be wasting my time talking to people who were already thinking over the lunch menu that we were going to serve. I wanted them to be present with me. So I had their permission to keep shaking this bell or doing various other things that would indicate that they needed to do a quick run through as they sat there. If they heard that bell, they all did a quick run through silently to themselves of that awareness exercise that's on the first video. So we're talking about an important change in our lives. Now think about how this can be used with art. Okay, because or a craft that you do, something inspirational. I mean, it works amazingly well if you're painting, working with clay, working with all the different mediums. One way that I first started practicing this, out of all the ways they told me I could use it in my normal life, as a mother of 3 children by then, was to have a notebook and to draw straight lines, pitching my awareness, having done the exercise beforehand, and then pitch my awareness at the point of the lead of the pencil and the paper. And what I actually did, I mean, I'm somebody who's always worked for myself ever since I was 25, actually. I just gave up that whole normal corporate existence because I was actually classified ad manager of a London newspaper at the time. So what I did was I ran my own business in whatever way that was. Sometimes with a lot of people that I employed when I ran a new age centre with a vegetarian restaurant and a whole food shop, as well as therapy rooms. So there were quite a lot of people there. But whatever it was, even when I was working just as a therapist myself, I had to do accounts. So I just got a normal book and I actually used the awareness exercise to line up every one of those without a ruler. So I would draw up my accounts page freehand by using the awareness exercise. Now, when you start doing this one, it's fascinating. Because when you start, you pitch your awareness and don't do too long a lines. That's a good hint in the beginning, because you start to draw the line. You've pitched your awareness. It's right there where it needs to be. And you start drawing the line. And then your mind comes in with a thought and it will wiggle that line. And that's what you're going to see through that exercise. I mean, I love that because you can have a really good laugh at the end of it, because you can look at the lines. Say you decide to do 6 lines. And it'll either be a thought coming in like, oh my God, what am I doing here? Or, oh my goodness, this isn't going to be straight. But you'll be able to see in the slight detour that line takes, every thought that came in your head. And that you couldn't even get to the end of the maybe 6-inch line that you were drawing in a small notebook without a thought coming in and interrupting you. And that's really good information. That's not a bad thing. That's showing you where the state of mastery of your mind is. Okay, so that's a really fun exercise, and I actually used it. I mean, I always did my own accounts, so I had a way to do it where every time I opened that book, I had a new page to draw up, and that was just, it became normal for me to, even though I had done the exercise 4 times a day for a long period of time, at least 6 months, and then it started to really crystallize that I could be in this now moment much more of the time. And you know, in the beginning, when you do the exercise, you must go back to video 1. That's imperative here. So when you do that, you will notice that you get out of that state really quickly, but you always recognize when you're in it straight afterwards. And then the length of time starts to lengthen. Because what you're doing is you're coding your human technology. The exercise is the software, and it becomes permanently installed. And I call that crystallization, because that's what happened to me. I mean, after months of doing the exercise, I realized that I no longer felt odd when I was in the state of awareness. I felt odd when I was out of it. And that was when I realized how I'd crystallized it, not only by doing that exercise 4 times a day, but I had done all these other things. I mean, I was cooking all the time. I cooked every meal for my family. We were all vegetarians, and there wasn't a lot of vegetarian food around in the 70s. So I cooked all these meals, chopping all this vegetables and chopping fruit and all sorts of things. And even used it when I milked our goat. I had a goat that used to give us the milk every morning, and I had to milk it until it was like, it was a lot of milk. I had to make a lot of cheese and a lot of yogurt. But milking the goat, I mean, when I first got into this, I'd never milked a goat or a cow or anything, but I really wanted to do it. So having bought the goat and she was pregnant, I had to milk her. But even doing that with a sense of awareness was amazing, and it made it really quick, because it is quite a chore to do twice a day. You cannot not do it. You have to milk the goat, whatever else is going on in your life. And there was about, I'm thinking here, it was about half a gallon a day we got. I'm pretty sure of that. It might even have been more, actually. Because I know we used to give the milk to people who were intolerant of cow's milk as well, for their babies and all sorts of things like that. But even doing it like that, you can imagine that's an amazing experience when you're doing it in a different sort of way. You're not just trying to quickly get through the job because it's a chore, like all the other chores, like washing up, putting your attention between the plate and the cloth or brush that you use to wash it. You end up, after 5-10 minutes washing up, feeling in a totally different mood than when you started. If you pitch your awareness when you're doing it, instead of thinking, oh God, I've got to wash up. You could stay in that mood and chip a lot of plates, couldn't you? But if you do the awareness exercise, you will have a blissful experience. It's guaranteed, because you're in a different state of awareness. And if we measured it, it's a different frequency. So all the time that I was with my family, not only was I doing the exercise, but everything I was doing, I was pitching the awareness exercise. I remember the first time, this has just come back to me actually. I remember the first time when I was polishing a glass. Now, it was either a pane of glass that was one of the windows. No, it wasn't. It was a mirror in the house, a large mirror. And I remember polishing it and remembering that my teacher had said to me from this mystery school that he had had an amazing experience and realized that he could not be in anything less than bliss if he was in the right place within his awareness and consciousness. And it was at this moment that it came to me about the bliss side of this. And I remember just moving that cloth, and my awareness was pitched in between that cloth and that mirror, and sort of glowing from it. I could feel like I was glowing from it, because I was highly focused, highly present, and that was the first time. That was during the first weeks of trying it out all the time with household chores and in my normal life, rather than having to go away, which I did also, but to go away from the family to meditate. This was stuff I could do while I was with other people. I didn't have to talk about it. I could just do it and be present, and also aware of everything else that's going on in the room. Remember, we're talking about a higher frequency, so you're actually more aware. Like driving, if you drive with this sense of awareness, you're so much more aware. So you're not going to have accidents. You'll have less accidents. I'm trying to think of the other things that come from it. When I did the workshops for 2 days, I had the chef from my vegetarian restaurant prepare the meals. And although I used to do a lot of the workshops in a friend's house, she had a large house called the White House, actually. And her house was very good to do workshops with, quite a few people. So he would bring all the food over. And we would put all these big bowls of all this beautifully cooked vegetarian food on a table to share. And, what I'd do with people just before we broke for lunch, I would again say to them, listen, this is not about a break from the awareness exercise that we've been doing and that I've been pulling your attention back to with ringing my bell for the last 3 hours. What we're going to do during this break of an hour is we're going to be even more aware of what we're doing. And afterwards, it was really interesting. Afterwards, we talked about it and their experience. And even with 12 people present in a workshop and the bowls of food there, which weren't totally, measured out in those portions or anything, we just had big containers and we all helped ourselves. And at functions like this, where there's food to share, there's always things that happen, like all the best food will get taken in really big heaps by certain people who feel a lack of food and feel they're never going to get enough, and all states like that. And then there'll be the people that want everybody else to eat, and because they all are always the caregiver, and so they don't think of themselves. But what we experienced, all of us, when we talked about it after the meal, was that because they were told to really pitch their awareness on everything they did, how they ate. So eating becomes a totally different thing because your awareness is all the time on all those functions to do with eating the food. But when they took their portions of food, and always the food worked out completely right, where there was enough of everything for everybody, and the vibe in the room never went into that, where people get together and gossip about this, that, and other, and it all goes down very low key, doesn't it? I mean, it can happen in all sorts of social functions like that, unless there's one person that walks in and starts pitching a higher frequency without even opening their mouths. But so our functions, even in those times of lunchtime, was incredible. Because the energy and there were so many connections, real connections made with different people in the room, and everything was shared equally. Now, this sounds like I'm talking about a utopia. It kind of is, but it's down to how many people are going to pick this up and run with it. I know that out of the people I knew who went to this mystery school with me, I was the only one that carried on doing it. They kind of thought, oh, that's fascinating, and did the exercise in the room, because I checked with them and they never ran with it. I mean, I ran with it and taught it for over 30 years to individual clients that I had, and when I ran those workshops in the early days. But so yeah, it can sound like a utopia, but this is about the utopia for you, so that you feel the best you can. Because I can tell you now, you do not feel fear when you're in the now moment. Now, that's an incredible thing to say, isn't it? And that's what happens to people when they get accelerated by a dangerous situation into a higher frequency, don't they? And there's a child under a car and nobody can push that car off. So what somebody does, the guy goes in and he lifts it up. And everybody afterwards says, how did that happen? Well, it happened because he became who he really is. And he released all his potential at that moment, okay? So what we're talking about is we're talking about heightening ourselves by understanding how to start functioning differently with mundane tasks. And then when the big things come up, you're ready. And check out, I have, there was one of the truth testaments actually that came through, which are also on my channel, 42 of them that I was asked to channel from last August to this August. And in those, there are incredible things that they are teaching us, you know. And one of them I labeled up, average human versus superhuman. And it was just because they mentioned that we don't use our potential. But what I'm going to be doing is a workshop on that, on this channel, on a video, because I know that that's what we're doing with this awareness exercise. And I'm going to do another video where I'm going to go through some of my own experiences, where, because I was able to change and amp up where I was within myself, right in the moment, at a time of emergency, at a time when maybe I didn't even know it was an emergency, but I listened because a voice came in really strongly and I was in a state within myself where I heard it because I was so alert and conscious. And I will tell you some more stories there and some more ways that you can use this very simple exercise, which takes you into being in this state much more of the time. And then after a while, you will realize you've crystallized into that state, which then can go even higher when you require it to, but that you have forever brought up your frequency that is now set in your human technology at that rate, because that is surely what happens. I know that through my own experience and the experience of lots of other people. But we will go on with this journey, and I will do part 3 of the fast track to cosmic consciousness, hopefully tomorrow. Take care, be awake and aware, and keep your disciplines up, okay? And then you will be rising in frequency all the time. I would love you to subscribe, and I really thank everyone who has subscribed so far. And please give us a thumbs up on the like so that we can be a part of this algorithm so that many, many more people get to see this video on our channel. Bye for now.